We're here today with Firefire from No.org just a few weeks after their victory against Cloud9 Academy in the LCS Proving Grounds. To jump straight into it, Firefire, what was going through your mind as Cloud9 Academy's Nexus fell to signal that you were the LCS Proving Grounds winner?
It's just been crazy. It still hasn't 100% sunk in the fact that we were able to come out on top and win it all. It was, crazy feeling back then, even now, like knowing that in the end, we were the best team. We came out on top. All of our hard work and effort that we put in over the months, over the close to 100 games we played, the fact that it all came to fruition, it's one of the greatest feelings you can have as a player.
After you celebrated the victory with your teammates, could you tell me the first person who you saw congratulate you?
Oh, honestly, it's impossible to tell who was the first. Because we were on such a big stage this year, on the Academy stream, LCS stream, with playing against all these Academy orgs with all their fan bases backing them as well. There was just a downpour of people coming out and supporting us. I tweets all in the span of like 4 or 5 minutes because everyone was so happy, everyone was going crazy. Like looking at my teammates' pages as well, and everybody that was supporting them. Also, because we were on such a big stage, this was the first year that like I got personal like direct messages even throughout the tournament of people saying like, oh, you guys are doing so good, like I'm rooting for you. Or even after our loss in the upper bracket, people were messaging me saying like, it's okay, man, like I'm still rooting for you, like you guys got this, you can make the comeback, you can make the run. So yeah, it's really hard to tell who was first. It was probably one of the analysts on Twitter who's, always up there tweeting as soon as everything happens. But yeah, no, to me it doesn't really matter who was first because there was just so many people being awesome and supportive, and it was great.
I saw on Twitter that you actually asked the LCS to give your team either a banner or a trophy as a way to receive recognition. Is there any update on that? Is a trophy on the way?
Unfortunately, we haven't had anything yet. I mean, honestly, I like a lot of people took it kind of jokingly, but I'm kind of serious because usually the winners of each academy split, they get a banner, right? And I don't know if they're in LCS Arena always or what exactly happens to them, but like they get a banner and they get a trophy and they get all this stuff. And while it is a little difficult because we're all remote and we're not all in the same place or whatever, I think it still would be a really cool idea and a really cool showing that of like Proving Grounds is serious. Like this is what everyone should be striving to win. This is what everyone should be wanting to do, and not just so much like it's just you won an online tournament, here's some money, right? Although I do understand why Riot wouldn't want to hang a giant no org banner in their arena. But my fingers crossed that maybe if Riot and LCS is back in person next year, maybe we'll see it there.
Going back to the tournament, before meeting C9 Academy in the grand finals, you had to get that after losing them in the upper bracket finals. What adjustments did the team make heading into the rematch?
Well, I think we had a lot better of an idea of what we wanted to do and what they wanted to do. Because before the first match in the upper bracket, it was really tough to get scouting on them because they had only played, 6 or 7 games total throughout the event. And, we had played way more than that even before the event, right? So we really took our time. We went over all the videos, all the VODs of those 4 games from that series. And we just thought to ourselves, constantly, even won our lower bracket match, we were thinking about like, oh, well, this could be good against Cloud9, or oh, yeah, this was bad against Cloud9, or we don't want to do this. So, just lots of long talks, late nights with the team, with the coaches, thinking about like, okay, well, they usually do this. So, maybe this is good. But then if they do this, like, what can we respond with? So really, it was just a joint effort in everybody to, adapt and be malleable and be ready for that rematch.
Besides the rematch, you were going to lock horns with some of the people you already played with before the start of this new amateur circuit. You and some of your teammates even mentioned this, in fact, in the post-game interviews throughout the tournament. How important was the familiarity of those aforementioned arrivals from Cloud9 Academy in Norg's preparation?
Yeah, a little bit, but you never really know because each team works differently. So even if you know how an individual player likes to play, maybe they function in that team differently or something like that. But yeah, no, for me, getting to play against Copy again in the mid lane after playing against him last year was fun. I was excited to see how much he had improved in his 4 months in academy. Unfortunately for him, I still was the one to take home the trophy once again for him. Unfortunate, but he's improving a lot. He's a great player. He's definitely one of the better mids in academy, so I'm happy to see him do well too.
Unfortunate for him, but fortunate for you, right?
Yes, very true, very true.
Even so, there's no denying that you guys had to struggle immensely before the conclusion of the grand finals. What was the team's comms like in the midst of the comeback?
Yeah, so before, we're still talking about how we can win. We never want to think about like, this game's over. Sometimes the game is really over and you have to start thinking about the next game. But in that case, we knew we still had the chance to win. We knew we still had the ability to get in there and find good fights and find good angles. So you'll see, like, we kind of are trying to fight to the death a little bit, and it doesn't go so well. And then, then I start thinking, I'm like, oh, crap, this is probably going to go to a game 5, but at least we'll be able to choose blue side or something like that. But then we're still hunting for that one little mistake, that one little slip up, and luckily Viper and Ig were able to find it, right, and they were able to get the huge combo on the Baron pit. And then from that point on, we knew we had a huge chance to win. We knew that we had everything that it took to be able to close out the game, because we knew that like our team fighting had been like honed so much over the past like couple months of scrims and whatnot. And we knew that we had the composition that would allow us to continue to play the game, because that was one of things we adapted on was in our first series against Cloud9, a lot of our compositions just got outscaled and weren't able to play fights later on into the game. But in game 4, we had the Victor, we had the tankier set, we had the Rel, so we were still able to find these huge engages, these huge combos, and I was still able to be relevant despite the fact that I was super behind. So like as soon as the big play happened, like I think we knew we were gonna win it, right? All of a sudden, all of our gears flipped, everything switched on. We were like, okay, we can really win it now. Like let's just make sure. Okay, what can we do with this Baron? Like how can we go the best forward? Always thinking forward, never dwelling on well what just happened or whatever. And yeah, that's most of it. Always just trying to find the best angles, do the best you can with what you've got.
Interestingly enough, that predicament was, in a way, similar to Game 2 of the series against Golden Guardians Academy, where the team was rooted in a deficit before clawing back to steal the victory and progressing to the next round. What was the adversity you felt in the beginning of the tournament similar to the one you faced in Cloud9 Academy? How much did the Golden Guardian series help your team in overcoming the next big deficit in the grand finals?
To a certain extent, it's similar to every time, we were behind in scrims or practice and we were able to come back, right? Knowing that we have the ability to and we have the capability of making these plays, especially when Viper is on his A game, and is able to find those huge combinations. We definitely knew we had the idea for it. We knew we had the ability to do it. I would say Golden Guardians was a little bit different because it's like the game 8 and also we were getting outscaled, so we should have lost. But again, trusting our fight angles, trusting Biggs engages, trusting Viper's engages, and then Value, I, and Onda doing our best to facilitate the rest of the fight. Definitely a part of that comes from playing games like that against Golden Guardians.
A little bit of a controversial question here, but in your opinion, who was the toughest team that you faced in the Proving Grounds?
Well, so obviously the Series 2 is Cloud9. So they were definitely tough. There were some teams that we only ever got to practice against, never got to play against, that I was surprised didn't do so well in the actual event itself. Immortals Academy, for example, I think they were the team we had the worst win rate against in practice. To be fair, we didn't play very many matches against them, but still, like every time, like they seemed like a better Cloud9 to us when we played them. So we were really nervous if we were going to end up running into them, but luckily that never happened. And then besides that, I mean, I think all the teams we played were at least strong in their own right. None of the teams were like pushovers. None of the teams were weak. We always had to do our due diligence and our due prep. Like I think in almost every series we had at least one difficult game, one game that didn't go exactly according to plan, and we had to, think on the fly. And they challenged us. They made us. We really work for it. Like I'm thinking like game two against One Guardians, game one against Barrage. Obviously the Cloud9 series. So the Cloud9 series that we lost. So yeah, respect to pretty much all the teams that were there, all the teams that played. Um, but but yeah, definitely like Cloud9, Immortals maybe, and then I guess yeah, actually Golden Guardians probably were pretty tough, and Golden Guardians as well like improved so much from when we had first seen them and first played them. So that was a bit of a shock. We were like, oh crap, we might lose round one. We didn't expect this. But luckily we did make that comeback in game two. So.
Throughout the tournament, you guys were one of the only teams that didn't mind breaking out weird drafts. For example, you were put on Aatrox and Renekton, champions that normally reside in the top lane, whereas Viper played Vayne, a usual ADC champion. As a result, you were the most diverse player in the tournament, using 10 champions for your pool. How integral was this occasional unorthodox drafting for Norg's victory?
I mean, I think it was pretty important. Obviously, the play and execution is the most important part. Once you're in the game, what do you do with what you got? But we were lucky that we had a huge period of time before Proving Grounds where practice. And when you're practicing on the same patch for weeks and weeks and basically over a full month, you have time to prepare these like little back pocket picks that you can throw out. So, while the Aatrox might have looked weird, I've actually played it in practice, maybe 5 or 6, 7 times into Sylas, and we knew it was a good matchup. We knew how to play around it, things like that. And really, it just makes it hard for the enemy team because they always have to be worried. They always have to be scared, because if they don't pick the safest thing, right, they pick something that maybe has a counter and they don't know about it, and then you counter them, they could just lose a game from that on the spot, right? If they aren't careful. Or if they aren't confident enough in their pick. So definitely it made it difficult to draft against us. I'm sure we were really annoying with all these random picks and whatnot. I'm sure some of the teams in practices were like, why the heck is this guy picking this? I'll never pick this on stage. But, I decided to show as well that, I can play pretty much everything, right? I played the Aatrox, and then I played the Victor in the same series, right? In the series before, I played the Set and the Rise, right, against 100 Thieves, right? I'm playing basically every single version of mid laner. I played Akali as well, the Assassins. So, really wanted to showcase and prove that, I can do it all. I can play everything. I can fulfill every role that you need as a mid laner. And yeah, I guess I didn't know I was the second most diverse player, so I guess I did pretty well in that respect.
As for the 10 champions selected, you're actually behind your teammate Viper.
Yeah. So he was also a big component of that, Like he would tell me, he's like, "Oh no, pick Aatrox, pick Aatrox. If it looks bad for you, like I'll take it. Like, or pick Sylas. If it looks bad, I'll take it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." And so he enabled me in that way, and in a sense, I also enabled him because it allowed him to get a lot of good matchups that he liked. It allowed him to pick the Vayne on the 10 pick because the enemy thinks they're playing against something else, right? So really, we were quite the duo there.
How did competing in the grand finals of Proving Grounds fare relative to playing at the same stage but in different events?
So part of it was a little sad because we did have to play online. We did have to play remote. So, I wasn't able to see my teammates or my coaches or any of the fans or anything like that. So that part was slightly disappointing, but definitely the fact that it was this huge spotlight. I think during the matches, I didn't really realize it because I was so focused on the match. I was focused on winning. Wasn't really worried about anything else. Wasn't checking social media, anything like that. But then definitely after the fact, it was crazy, right? Just the downpour of, I had so many people like, that I had no clue who they were, that I had never seen before, who were like, oh, I saw this thing on LCS, and wow, Norg's so good, and 5 fires should get picked up for a team, and oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. So that, I mean, that was really crazy. Like, I still have some people who are messaging me even to this day, like almost a full week later, who are saying like, "Oh, dude, I saw you. You did so great. Like, you got a new fan." And I'm like, "I have fans now?" Like that's something, previous years as an amateur, we would never get, more than maybe a couple thousand viewers at most, even for the grand finals. So definitely moving forward, even if it's not, even again, if it's remote for this coming split, I think if Proving Grounds continues, especially next year, if it's in person, that'll be crazy. That'll be amazing to actually be on stage with your teammates out there playing. It'll also be nice because then everyone can have low ping and all that good stuff. So yeah, part of me wanted to go hug my teammates, wanted to go out to dinner with them, but sad that I couldn't. But still got to celebrate, which was with some friends and family, which was nice. Um, but yeah, and then just the sheer amount of people that were rooting for us and cheering for us, and we're happy that we won. Was just amazing.
As the tournament continued, it felt as if each player had their own shining moment that prompted fans to join you all in praise.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody showed up, and I made a tweet about this after the event because going into it, you have all the supporters, but you also have a lot of the doubters, right? You have the people who look at our roster and they say Viper is washed up, like why is he here? This guy, looked bad in LCS, he'll never make it back, and then he goes and he's like basically solo carries that last game of the tournament to an extent and just shows everybody why he's insane. I mean, he did it throughout the entire split, but he really put his mark on that last game. Similar thing with Onda. Some people are like, "Who's this guy?" Like, people are like, they kind of remember him, but he's just like a thought in the back of their head. And he came out and he out jungled all of these hot new junglers in the tournament. People like Surenfire who have a bunch of old competitive experience, and also new people like Kenvi, who everyone's hyping up on the show. He's like, nah, don't worry, I'm still the best jungler here. For myself, obviously, it was very liberating as I had been passed up, by a lot of orgs for a lot of the different younger mid laners, um, for whatever reason, and to be able to show up for myself and prove to all of them, be like, hey, look, you missed out on a chance to have the best mid laner, the best unsigned mid laner in NA on your team. And then for Value, this was really his first year of like high level competitive experience. He'd played collegiate before. He had a small stint in Oceania. But he showed up, and again, as well, he just beat all the top Academy 80 carries in the final series. He's playing against King, a player that a lot of people are saying, deserves LCS, like deserves some games at least, deserves some time. And he showed up and he played insanely well in the last series. He got a pentakill in the first game, right? And then finally, Big is a very similar story to Viper, where a lot of people hear his name and they're like, "Oh, it's the old LCS player with the funny voice." Like, but he's bad now. Like, he hasn't been good in forever. And then he hits just the most insane engages, and he's the MVP of the finals in this Academy split, right? So really incredible. Super happy for all of them, and really, yeah, it definitely felt good. Going back through some of the old messages and seeing people be. Oh, and even for our coaches too. Some people said like, oh, the academy coaches are way better, so they'll probably improve a lot more, and that's why no org isn't going to make it so far in the tournament. Our coaches Zig and Stunt, Derek and Will, like they showed up. They had great drafts. They taught us a lot about the game. They really improved us as well. We weren't stagnating at all. So yeah, we literally everybody, even the coaches, came up and showed up, and that felt really good.
And why wouldn't have this sort of vengeful demeanor when almost everyone had been discarded by organizations leading to this team's eventual formation? I guess one could call this Noog's win in Proving Grounds the completion of the redemption arc.
Yeah, everyone had their reasons that they were there. Everyone had the reasons that they were fighting to win. I mean, obviously, just playing to compete is fun in and of itself. But the fact that there was the little extra spice on top, definitely, I think, pushed us all to go even harder.
Taking an outer look at the final standings, your team was the only amateur side standing amidst a sea of academy teams, with the next amateur team placing in 9th to 12th, which is Barrage. What do you make of this gap displayed between academy and amateur teams? Also, do you think these amateur teams will improve come to the end of summer split?
Well, it's tough to say. Also, I think you're overlooking Evil Genies. I'm pretty sure they did better than ninth, 12th. But they were associated with Evil Geniuses. But they were a team of full amateurs who showed up and did really well. They were actually interesting. They were a full team even last year, towards the end of last year when everybody else was done playing. They played in some small tournaments and got noticed. So that was really nice for them. But I think we'll have to see because I think amateur is going to go one of two ways next split most likely. I think the first way is amateur will get a lot stronger and a lot of the good players will consolidate onto the stronger teams like Wildcard, Evil Geniuses, Prodigies. Well, maybe there'll be another No Order, Sola Fide, who knows. So that's one option where maybe instead of one or two strong teams, you have three or four, contesting for that top 8, and you could maybe have a 50-50 split of academy versus amateur. And I think right now it's moving maybe more towards this, unfortunately, is some of the teams are going to start to dilute, where some of the stronger players are going to be, on different other random teams. And, maybe we won't have another no org, maybe like us 5 no org players would be on 4 or 5 different teams in and of itself. So then while you'll have maybe more amateur teams that can contest academy teams, I think you might have less that are contesting for those top spots. So it remains to be seen exactly what'll happen. It's just, from what I've heard through the grapevine, through some back channels. But definitely I'm excited. Hopefully we inspired a bunch of the amateur teams to show them like, hey, you guys can do it. You guys can win it all. These academy teams aren't invincible. So yeah, we'll see exactly what happens, but I'm looking forward to it either way.
Besides your team, was another team or player that impressed you so much that you feel deserves an adequate look by organizations?
Oh, well, I think technically my answer doesn't count because he's on TSM amateur now. But Dark Wings from Zeus Gaming. In fact, most of the players on Zeus Gaming, I think they were a team that people looked at and said like, oh, maybe they can qualify, but they're just gonna lose, right? And then they showed up and they took a game off Cloud9, almost knocked them down to the losers bracket, like in the second round. They were the team that gave us the most trouble during the regular amateur season as well. Them included with Barrage. And so, I think a lot of the players on that team really deserve to be looked at because they're players that classically teams would just completely ignore. They're not super high elo. They don't have like really big fan bases or anything like that. They weren't like super recognizable, but they all showed up and they all played really well. They all played really strong games. They contested the second place team, right? So definitely, I think all those players deserve a look at. My go-to would have been Dark Wings, my opposing mid laner, but he already did get technically picked up by an org. So I'll just have to cop out and say, that team deserves a strong look at by all the LCS organizations.
Moving forward and looking towards the future is the summer split, where it will feature a new schedule that Riot introduced during the Proving Grounds. I bring this up because during our first interview we talked about the issues with scheduling as Norg prepared for Proving Grounds and how overwhelmed the team as they played games non-stop for months. Seeing as Riot instituted the change after our interview, we can say that your words contributed to this facilitation. What are your thoughts on the upcoming schedule for Proving Grounds Summer?
So I have to be honest, I actually haven't taken a really strong look at it. So I don't know exactly. I know that Academy is playing a lot more games. I know that in amateur, if you qualify early, you can choose whether or not you want to play in the rest of the tournaments. Which I think overall is probably one of the best situations we can have because these Academy teams, they deserve to be able to play more than 9 games in their regular season. And then similarly, if you win the first amateur tournament, you're probably a really strong team. You probably want to spend a lot of time scrimming and practicing against the academy teams, so you'll have a lot more time to do that. In the end, I'm just really happy that, they listened to the feedback that the community gave and they made the quick adjustments. Maybe they won't get it perfect this time as well, but that's fine. There's still things to work out. Still, we'll have plenty more seasons, hopefully, of Proving Grounds to make sure everything goes smoothly. And I'm just glad that Riot's committed to, continue improving and developing the amateur and academy scene.
Well, I guess I should now call you Clairvoyant Fire instead of Fire from now on, or something like that.
Yeah, we'll have to look back at this interview in 6 months and see how much of the stuff I got right. But
Compared to the LCS, which held the mid-season showdown in patch 11.5, Proving Grounds was actually played on 11.6. What did you make of the difference of the patches used between the region's top 2 tiers?
it is a little weird, especially because I'm sure some of the academy teams wanted to scrim the LCS teams, and vice versa. So it makes it a little bit difficult. I know we even had opportunities to scrim some LCS teams, and due to the fact it's different patch and higher ping and all this stuff, I think we declined almost all of them. But definitely it doesn't change too much patch to patch, luckily. There's like not really a lot of insane changes. But definitely it made it interesting because it meant that everybody in Proving Grounds had to develop their own tactics, their own style. They couldn't just copy whatever LCS was doing and hope that it worked. You know, we regions we could look at, maybe LPL, LCK, things like that. But even then, it's hard to emulate exactly their play styles, right? So it definitely, I think it helped people get more into their own zone as opposed to trying to, copy what everybody else was doing, which I think made for a more interesting and exciting tournament. I mean, like, for example, in our first series against Cloud9, they had like this Seraphine Karma Kindred like comp where they were trying to buff up the Kindred and do all this stuff. And meanwhile, they were playing against us who had like Silas Akali, Hecarim, like trying to dive in, right? Just like two completely different comps headbutting into each other. Not boring, same old, like just two death balls or whatever. So that was, I think it made things more interesting ultimately. I don't know if Riot will do it in the future, but I think it ended up working out.
What about the difference in time duration? After all, Proving Grounds lasted almost a month, which was double than that of the mid-season showdown. Surely it must have felt like a marathon, but not just no org, but the rest of the competition.
For sure. At least for me, I felt like, we would win our first after we won our first series, we had to wait a full week to play our next series. And at that point, we had already been practicing on the patch for close to 2 weeks or something like that. So we already had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do. And at that point, it's kind of hard to stay focused, when you've been playing basically the same thing over and over. I know our jungler was getting really bored of playing Udyr every single game. We would show up in scrims and be like, well, we have two options. Either we can play Udyr again, even though we've already played it, maybe 20, 30 times, or we can ban it, but then the draft doesn't become real anymore, right? It's not what would happen on stage. So our coaches had to juggle with all that. And definitely for me as a player, like I just wanted to play, right? I wanted to play our next match. I wanted to play our next opponent. I didn't want to have to wait a full week every single time. So definitely it felt like things were a little bit drawn out, but I understand why they had to be due to the double elimination format, which I definitely prefer to single elim. Some of the teams were able to make the deep losers bracket run, especially 100 Thieves. After losing to Evil Geniuses Academy, they came back and beat them way later in the tournament. So hopefully Riot keeps that, even if the tournament has to be this long, drawn-out thing. I think ultimately it's better for all the teams, even if as a player, I just want to play. I just want to play. I understand why it has to go long, and honestly, it makes it a bit more epic. The fact that we played for a full month and came out on top in the end is pretty cool.
What is the one player you can cite from Proving Grounds for pro/academy teams to look at and say, look, this is who I am and this is how I play?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's a few that really come to mind. Like I had some fights that I played really well earlier on in the tournament. But then later on in the tournament, I also had some skirmishes, where I was going 1v2, 1v3 and coming out on top. I mean, it's tough exactly to say. what I would want to do, because some of the, because it's, do you want to show like the big risky outplay, or do you just want to show yourself being the smart controlled player who's winning through just being the better player. But one of the plays for sure would be in the finals in the game where I was playing Silas. A little bit. I was in a rough matchup. I had died in the fights, even though we were winning. But I was able to kind of go 1v3 and bait the dive with it being able to take the Alistar ult and turn around a huge play and really blow open the game for our team. So I think that's the sort of play that I would love to show to teams, where it's like, hey, look, here I was behind, I wasn't doing super hot, but I still saw an opportunity and I worked. And not only did I see an opportunity, but I told my team about it and we worked on it. We executed it, and it blew open the game. It was almost game winning in and of itself. And plays like that are just, they're really, really nice when they work out. So I would love to show that to all the teams.
It comes to no surprise to anybody that you're looking for a team after the forthcoming split, evidenced by your tweet not long after winning Proving Grounds. On the off chance that you don't find any organization to play under, can you tell me what would happen in your case? Will Noog have to run it back for Proving Grounds Summer?
We'll see. Right now, we're in a weird spot because the next split is starting so soon, and I know teams are already starting to practice, I think like next week or the week after. So we're all trying to move as fast as we can, and all of us on NoOrg, we want to play professional, right? That's our main goal. So right now, we're all seeking out pro opportunities. If none of us find anything, which, I mean, that would be a tragedy to win it all and then not go anywhere, then maybe we would run it back. But I also think there's a good chance that some of our players will just take a break. We've already won, we've already showed up. We'll just wait until off season to make some bigger moves. For myself personally, I'm still not 100% sure exactly what I'm going to be doing. I've been doing some coaching. I've been playing in some of these money matches and things like that with Tyler One and with Tarzane and all this stuff. So my future is still a little bit uncertain. I'm still talking to teams. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want to go, exactly what I want to do. And even if I want to do amateur, if I don't make it onto a team. So unfortunately, I don't really have any concrete answers right now. But just know that no matter what, I'll still be playing. I'll still be, on streams somewhere doing something. So yeah, don't worry about it too much.
Let's say the opportunity arrives and a EU team, for example, would like you to play there for one of the regional leagues. Would you be available for taking a flight overseas?
Yes. So I actually lived in Europe prior to living in the US. I lived in Switzerland for 4 years, so it wouldn't actually be that crazy for me. And I'm definitely open to all offers right now. If a really good European team wants to pick me up and I know I can do well over there and improve over there, and it's going to be the best for my career, then of course, I would go for it. It's all for the love of the game and the love of the competition. And also, to me, it's more fun and adventurous. I'm not really scared of going to Europe. I would be more excited, I think. So hopefully, if any European teams are watching this, hi, I'm Five Fire. I'm a pretty good mid laner. If you need somebody, just let me know. But yeah, definitely open to all offers from pretty much every region. At this point, I just want to be on a team, want to be in an org. Be able to be in the arena and play again whenever that is. And so, anyone who can give me that opportunity, I'll give them a look.
Do you have any final words before we end this interview?
Just thanks everyone for the huge support throughout the whole year. It's not easy being an amateur and having people doubt us, having people look down on us, having people, try to make excuses and things like that. Try to come up with the craziest reasons for why we're not on teams and stuff like that. Everybody that, sent me messages or even just, followed and liked us on Twitter or watched, my teammates' streams, everything like that. We notice all of it. We love and respect all of it. So, continue to support not only us, but also the rest of your favorite amateur players and even your favorite academy players too. While maybe, amateur won this time, the academy players deserve recognition in their own right. Yeah, beyond that, thanks to everyone who supported me directly. The season wasn't always the easiest, so you guys always help us through the tough times. And the win is a little bit yours as much as it is ours. So, enjoy that.
Well, Firefire, thank you very much for your time with us. It's been a pretty long interview. Hopefully, we haven't wasted too much of your time. Best of luck in the Proving Ground Summer, wherever you may end up, whatever organization you're with.
Thank you so much, man. It was great talking to you again. Hopefully, I'll see you soon.